Yes, people, welcome back to the channel. This is the Manchester United versus Tottenham preview. And as so many matches for United these days, this one carries quite a lot of jeopardy. And that's a very crazy thing to say in a way when you look at it and think Manchester United are unbeaten in 4 games in the league. But it's the fact that Tottenham, big test, fellow European competing rivals in terms of league position for end of the season, and the fact that United, obviously, and everyone, has an international break to go into after it, so it can basically dictate the whole vibe. Because you know Manchester United, as we always say on this channel, and we always say in general, are always one game away from a crisis. And I think this would be a huge scalp. And we have a bone to pick with Tottenham, because it's not been a very, very good fixture for us as of late. And it feels like a great opportunity for a Tottenham side that have been sputtering recently in the league under Thomas Frank, still finding themselves, still finding their identity, winning games and getting results that they maybe shouldn't have. I feel like their underlying metrics have them around like 14th, 15th place. They've massively overachieved, by the way. And I think me saying that might bite me in the ass. But it's a massive and it's a huge game, and it's a chance to make a statement, because United going into the international break, 5 games unbeaten in the league, from where we came from at the end of last season and how we began the season, would be a huge momentum shifter, especially when it's against another side that will be competing with us for them European places come the end of the season. And Tottenham, as I've just said, I'm going to read out some things because I talked about the jeopardy, talked about some of the most background stats of this fixture. And Tottenham have been terrible at home. So that's why I feel like this is a huge opportunity, but it could be a potential banana skin, because we know they do have some quality players. But Tottenham have only collected 4 points out of a possible 15 at home, and they're winless in their last 3, losing all 3 of them. They've had a terrible record at the, what do you call it? I call it White Hart Lane. I'm always going to call it that. But they've had a terrible record there. Not done well at all, playing fossil football, very over-methodical, lack of creativity. They've really, really struggled, and they've been heavily reliant on set pieces and that type of physicality, which obviously Thomas Frank's brought over there from his Brentford days. Pragmatism, basically squeezing the margins, percentage football. A lot of the things that you wouldn't really attribute to what the ethos of Tottenham as a football club, really. And I think their fans are finding it a little bit difficult to digest, even though the results in totality haven't been terrible. But for me, if they perform the way I have seen them perform in some games recently, I think Manchester United have a real chance of not just winning, but winning fairly comfortably. But I never see it as like that, because I look at it stylistically. I always look at matchups that way, because I'm not the type of person that's going to see Tottenham lose to Everton last week and think, oh, they've lost to Everton, that means we're going to beat them. Because, as I say all the time, styles make fights, and different teams have different philosophies that suit or like almost favourable to certain teams that they're playing. And I thought the same thing going into the Forest match, which we obviously didn't win and we drew. I thought the new way we've been playing recently, which is long ball, quite vertical, recovering loose balls, second balls, I don't think that's going to fare too well against this Spurs team, who are one of the more physical teams that you'll play in this league. The likes of Van der Ven, Romero, and they've got the likes of Spence and Udogie at fullback, who are basically 6 foot, athletic, powerful players. And then you've got midfield of like Paulinho, which you don't get a better dual monster in the whole of Premier League football than him. Eye test supports that. Stats support that. And a little bit iffy. He's a little bit limited on the ball, but one thing Paulinho does is he's rugged, he's aggressive, and he wins the ball back at an alarming rate as well. So that's one area of the pitch to focus on. And I think with him, and then you've got Bentancur, who's more inclined to that side of things as well. Sometimes they've started Bergvall, who's got a little bit of physicality about him as well. On Pape Sarr, Bergvall's obviously injured. That's a very strong midfield trio as well. And then you've got the likes of Kudus out wide. And then they start Richarlison and Kolo Muani up front. You're looking at 90% of the team and thinking, 6 foot, big, powerful, quick. Could talk about the lack of technicality, the lack of creativity, and I think that's what's hampered him in a lot of games this season. But I think if we go to Spurs and we play that kind of hoofball, very direct type of football, I almost think the way that our team's basically formulated and the way the composition of it wouldn't work too well. I think we've got to make the game a little bit different. I think this is a game where you try and utilise your small space players that can almost disrupt the compact mid-block that you'll get from a Thomas Frank, and players that have got the quality on the ball to kind of, these, we call them almost forced transitions, when you win the ball, not because people think transitions, they always think about when you win the ball back deep and you go on these long counter-attacks. But transitions can happen anywhere on the pitch, even if you win the ball in the final third. And those are the type of areas that Tottenham have been weak, because they've really, really struggled with the predictability of their build-up play. You're watching them, they're struggling to progress the ball, they're struggling to get into the final third enough. If you watch them against Chelsea, they basically couldn't even lay a glove on him. Any type of high pressure, and they've really struggled to basically find any solutions. So I think United need to probably lean on that, and United need to have play players that will be able to, when they do receive the ball back, or they do win it back, keep it and play forward quickly. That's where I think we'll hurt them, because I think that's where United actually play their best football. Likes of Cunha and Mbumo as well, who have obviously added a lot of attacking quality. I think if we don't, we could find ourselves in a little bit of trouble. What has annoyed me, though, is I think they've massively missed Romero at the back. Romero is probably the best ball progressor on their team. People think about him as this Hatchman kind of butcher type of player that's a bit half insane and just snaps people. But he's actually one of the better footballing centre-halves in the Prem, probably in Europe. And him coming back, having been injured for a few weeks, which has actually probably hampered him a lot more, especially he's a bit of a leader. He's a danger from set pieces as well. I think him coming back just in time for Manchester United is a massive kick in the teeth. But I think United need to do a situation where we're pressing them high, but we're kind of funneling them towards the left side, where they play Spence, they play Udogie, and they've got Van der Ven, which is a much less technical area of their build-up, or technical area of their back four, than the right side, which you've got Romero and Porro. You know the quality Porro possesses. Great on the ball. He's not just someone that hoofs crosses in, which he's got tremendous quality in the final third with, but he's also great at finding solutions from deep, whether that's long balls and behind, spraying it into the forward man's feet. I think if United want success pressing them, they've got to kind of funnel it towards the left side, which is Van der Ven, Porro. Sometimes you got Alderweireld on that side as well, or Bentancur on that side. And I think the technical security in them, in that collection of players, isn't quite the same. So United need to be clever. And I think the choices that we make in terms of our starting 11, I think it's going to be quite different from the ones that we've seen against Forest. Obviously, I'm going to go into my... I am going to go into my starting lineup in a few minutes, but I will mention also the statistics. I talked about how bad we've performed against them, especially under Ange. But United have actually not beaten Tottenham in 7 matches. We lost 5 of those and drawn 2. Something's got to give. We talked about how bad our record was against the likes of Brighton and how we basically owed them one. Finally got a result against them at Old Trafford. I think now it's time to do one against Tottenham, because it'd be a big scalp. They kind of recovered from that that was one of the worst performances I've seen from a top side in a long time against Chelsea. They recovered in midweek against Copenhagen, scoring 4, could have been 5-6. So they're coming into it a little bit of confidence. But I still thought, I've always thought anyway, that the fact that the likes of Tottenham, Villa, Newcastle are in Europe and they're playing midweek and we can be fresh going into these games, I thought that would give us an advantage. So United need to make sure it counts, especially when you run big away games, 12:30 kickoff. Usually don't bode too well for the away teams. But United need to try and start quick and start fast. I think the first 20 minutes, the first 15 minutes are going to be so important. And there's a lot of people, a lot of fans out there, including myself, that were kind of enamoured with Thomas Frank and the job that he done at Brentford. thought it was a possible solution for United in terms of the managerial position before Amorim became available and was chosen. And he showed himself to still trying to work things out in terms of making that step up to a big club where you kind of got to work out how to beat teams dominating the ball, how to find solutions to break teams down, getting the balance right in your midfield. Because he can and have found themselves a little bit too pragmatic and too over-reliant on set pieces. And I say this, and that could be the way that they end up outdoing us. Because you know about United's record against teams where United's record under Amorim when we dominate possession is we lose games more than we win. And United win more games when we have less. And that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea about the makeup and the identity of this side under Amorim, which is we're better playing quick and fast, not really playing tiki-taka, but also we're a counter-attacking transitional team for the most part, where we can get our better players in space. When teams go into a bit of a mid and low block, that's when we can find things a little bit difficult. But anyway, that's enough. I'm going to get into my starting 11, and the starting 11 that I've actually gone for, this is a bit of one that I'd pick, but also one that I feel like Amorim's going to decide to go for, and that is Lemens in goal. Obviously, never going to pick Bayern again, and I'm going to go for back three of Shaw, De Ligt, and Maguire. Lenny Yoro, from what I've heard, didn't have the greatest game against Forest, but I think when you're up against a Tottenham side that are so good at set pieces, look to swing crosses in at any opportunity, whether that's from free kicks, even 40 yards out, long throw-ins, I think you're going to need Maguire and De Ligt for the aerial presence and that box defending. And then you got Luke Shaw, who I think's had a steady few weeks. And I'm going for a midfield pillar of Casemiro and Bruno. I think Casemiro's going to be another important. I think him versus Paulinho, who can be the better destroyer on the day, is going to be essential. And I've gone for right wing back of Amad Diallo, hoping to bounce back from the Forest game. I've gone for Dorgu left back, just because I thought his cameo was a little bit of an improvement against Forest, and I thought Delo has just been played too poorly for me to pick him, and that's coming from a Delo guy. And I've gone for a front three, which might be controversial, of Cunha up top and Bouma on the right, and I think he's going to play Mason Mount on the left. I think that's going to be a bit of the surprise inclusion. And the reason why I believe that is because of his ability, obviously, in the press, and how he might lean on his almost out of position ability, but he's also got a technical security as well that we might need. And I feel like playing Sesko up front against Van der Ven and Romero, where we're likely to be very direct, I think that's going to feed. I'm not sure I like his chances just yet against them two in that type of game. I think Cunha will pose them a little bit more of a problem, being a little bit cleverer with his movement, not playing up against him, dropping off, almost playing that false nine, and then having Mbumo spinning off in behind him. Allow for a little bit more. I think that front three adds for a little bit more fluidity that can kind of disorganise Tottenham's back four a little bit more than playing Sesko up front and then Sesko to come on later. But I think that's the starting lineup that I would go for, and we're going to need a big game again against out the midfield pivot, and hopefully they don't get outnumbered against the likes of Pape Sarr, Paulinho and Bentancur, and the physicality in there is going to be important, and I think that's where Mount can almost narrow off defensively and help in there as well. But yeah, for me, that's the starting 11 I'm going to go for. It's going to be an important game. It's going to be a game I'm going to only see a little bit of. For them. I think I might miss the final 20 minutes because I'm playing for Paddock. It's one that I'm looking forward to, but it's one that I'm very nervous about because it's an opportunity for United to go 5 games unbeaten, end on a high going into international break, and then we can start being a little bit more hopeful about what the season can entail. After a draw against Forest, and a loss, then end up being 2 games without a win, and then all of a sudden the mood's very, very different. But yes, that is the team that I've picked. That's my little look ahead to the Tottenham match, a little preview, and I've just got my fingers crossed hoping that we have a result and we get a win. The expectations are higher now. That people are disappointed drawing against Forest after winning 3 in a row. This is the big club mentality we should have. This is how we should be. But we'll see how it goes. Remember to like, comment, subscribe if you're new, I will see you next time, and